Hi, I'm Sheri Richerson from exoticgardening.com, and I want to welcome you to our free winter gardening event. I am the author of several books, including the Complete Idiot's Guide to Year-Round Gardening and the Complete Idiot's Guide to Seed Saving and Starting. Now, we're going to be going through the year-round gardening today because obviously this is a winter gardening event. And I want you to leave your comments and questions below. If you think of something after the video is over, you can hashtag replay under the video, or you can go to the questions section in the group and you can leave your question there and I will see it. So either way, I definitely want to answer your questions and help you to be able to garden in the wintertime and grow some crops, save some money at the grocery store, and learn that growing vegetables doesn't just have to be a spring and summer thing. So in the group, if you have not already found this, I have this free printable right here that you can download. It is best planting information for winter gardening. And basically, there are some blank spots. There are some filled in spots. This printable is not available if you own my books. So you want to get this and have this. And what I have done for you is listed some common vegetables that people might want to grow in fall, into winter, or maybe even in early spring. And I have listed the lowest germination temperature for the seeds, how many days it takes for the seeds to actually germinate, how many days until harvest, what temperature the plants are cold hardy to, and this can vary by a couple of degrees. If you are growing in a microclimate, you might be able to get away with outside temperatures that are a little bit colder. And I've also included whether to direct sow these seeds or start them indoors. Now, if you're thinking, gosh, it's already late into the fall, winter is almost here, what am I going to do? I'd like to try this. I want to encourage you to start with a simple crop like lettuce. You may need to germinate that indoors like you normally would and get the plants started growing, and then harden them off just like you would in the spring and go ahead and sow them outdoors. Now, I'm going to tell you, I didn't do that. I just got the area in my tunnel house cleaned up last weekend, and I went ahead and planted seeds of lettuce and radish and spinach and peas outdoors in my tunnel house. Now, of course, that's going to give me a little bit of a microclimate and a little extra warmth. I did use row cover, also known as frost cover, a couple layers of that over the top, and I also used a mini tunnel house that was covered in plastic to add that extra warmth. So there are ways to do this. But anyway, let's get on with our agenda for today. This is a 3-day event. I will go live on tomorrow, and I will go live the day after. And the time will probably be around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If that changes, I will put a post in the group because I don't want any of you to miss out. Okay, so welcome to the Winter Gardening event. I am Sheri Richerson. And over the course of the next 3 days, you will learn how to garden outdoors year-round, even in a cold climate, using protective covers or garden structures. I am here in Indiana, which is a USDA Hardiness Zone 6, and I have gardened outdoors in winter since December of 2004. So everything I'm telling you comes from actual experience here. Today we are going to talk about how to get a head start on the growing season, various methods you can use, crops to start early, and how to extend the harvest into autumn and winter. Now, you may be thinking it's already winter. These techniques will work. So let's dive right in. Although we are going to start by talking about getting a head start on the growing season, these same techniques can be used to extend the growing season. Cold frames, greenhouses, and tunnel houses all allow you to get a jump start on the growing season because you can plant seeds weeks earlier than what you could in the garden without protection. And something I want to insert right here, I have planted a number of seeds in the garden in January and February and just gave them a little bit of protection, such as a cold frame or frost cover, and had some fantastic results. Using some type of structure to protect your seedlings or growing plants means you won't be rained or snowed out of your garden. This is why tunnel houses are nice. You can certainly do it with smaller structures, but with a larger structure, you can open it up and go inside and get out of the elements yourself. Inside of these structures, the temperatures are relatively warm, the ground is dried, and the plants are protected from frost. Of course, not everyone wants to spend a lot of money on a structure or take the time to build one. And so for those people, getting a head start on the growing season might mean simply covering your plants with whatever you have on hand, such as cleared milk jugs or 2-liter pop bottles. Those work. You can add a 3-inch layer of compost around the plants. The plant's roots. This is another option because that helps to warm the soil. Now, if you think about it, compost is warm, and you're putting that warmth around the plants in a 3-inch layer, which is going to radiate down into the ground. But you do need to be aware of frost if the plants you're growing cannot tolerate it. So what I'm saying here is you can put a 3-inch layer of compost to help keep the roots warm. But if you're growing a warm season crop such as tomatoes or peppers, and frost happens and that plant is not protected from the frost, that plant is not going to make it. And it doesn't matter how warm those roots are, you're going to have to do something to protect the upper foliage and the fruit from the frost. So some people opt to use wood mulch or even black plastic to help warm the soil before planting in early spring. And these methods do work. But again, if the plants are not frost tolerant, you still need to protect them using row cover or a structure of some kind. You also need to be aware if you're using row or frost cover, the item that I am using, which I purchased from Johnny's Seeds, will only protect plants down to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means if it's 28, 29 degrees Fahrenheit, my plants are going to be okay underneath of that cover. But if it gets any colder, it's not going to protect them. I'm going to need to do something different, such as put a layer of 6mm plastic or something else over the top of those plants and around the sides to protect them from the additional cold temperatures. So, row cover, sometimes called frost cover, is a special fabric made of lightweight polyester or polyethylene fabric that allows water and light to come through but insulates plants from frost and extreme cold temperatures. Now, this is really important because this is what you're actually trying to do, is to insulate the plant by creating a tiny little microclimate in a very small area around where the plant is growing. So, it is best to make sure this row cover does not touch your plants. You don't want to touch any of the plant's fruits or foliage. You've got to give that little bit of airspace between, and this is why we secure it at the bottom. So if some wind gets in around where you've got your plants, it can't blow that frost cover and get it stuck onto the plant somehow and cause you a problem. You can use wire or plastic conduit hoops to keep the row cover suspended above your plants and secure it on the ground using rocks or soil. So this year, I was able to purchase the nice little wire hoops from Johnny's to go with the row and frost cover that I bought. In previous years, I wasn't able to do that. So I used whatever I had on hand. Tomato cages. I had some old church window frames that I've used. I've used old door frames. I've used 1x2s and created a frame. So do not feel like, oh, I can't afford this, so therefore I won't do it. And I secure the frost cover on the ground using rocks, soil, pieces of wood, whatever I happen to have available. And this not only allows me to reuse it because it doesn't tear it as landscape pins would, but it keeps it secure against the ground, which keeps it from blowing around and the cold air getting up underneath. The reason you do not want the row cover to touch your plants is because the covers will get wet during the night, and the wet material touching the plants will cause the plant's foliage to freeze. And believe it or not, the first time that I tried to grow anything in the winter, I tried lettuce because, like I said, it is the easiest. And I watered everything in well. I put my frost cover. Then I suspended a couple inches above that a layer of 6 mil plastic. And then I used my windows, my old church windows, to create a frame. And they were large enough that you could actually open up and walk inside. So I went out, gosh, it must have been late December, I'm thinking. I went out and I opened it up about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I stepped inside. And the first thing I had to do was take my coat off because it was hot. And the second thing that I noticed is there was water condensation that was up on the plastic and had dripped down and had got my plastic and my row cover cool, moist. And so that kind of concerned me because I thought, oh, have I put too much water? Are my plants going to freeze when it gets really, really cold? Needless to say, the lettuce was fine all winter long. I was able to literally harvest lettuce all winter. And it was fantastic being able to put fresh vegetables from the yard on the table on Thanksgiving and Christmas, both that year. It's something that people don't expect, and it's just another way to show that you can be self-sufficient. You don't need a big area to do this in. I did use a cut and come again leaf lettuce so that when it got warm enough it would regrow, and it did. I only harvested what I needed as well. I didn't harvest like everything that I could have. So, and I also did one other experiment because I was curious. I went out into this area maybe about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and I quickly got inside, closed the door behind me, and I looked, and all of my lettuce looked like it was frozen. It was limp. It was awful looking. I was disappointed. I thought, well, now, it's not going to make it. And it was a few days before I went back out, and I went back out in the afternoon, and it had perked up, and it was fine. So this is why I say don't open your cold frame or try to harvest anything until maybe between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, because you want to get out there when the heat of the day is going on, before the cooler evening temperatures come, and after the morning temperatures have warmed up enough that those plants kind of spring back to life. So, if you're looking to sow seeds of perennials, and that's what you want to deal with in your winter garden, winter sowing is a great option. I don't know if any of you have done that, but I have sown both vegetables, half-hardy annuals, and perennials using the winter sowing method, and it is wonderful. Winter sowing is simply placing seeds in a moist growing medium in prepared containers such as clear 2-liter bottles or clear milk jugs. Mother Nature does the rest as long as you place the containers in a protected place and keep the growing medium moist. Now, I talk a lot about this in my year-round gardening book. You just take a clean, clear container. You take what did we do? We did a 3/4 circle around the center of the container. We drilled about 6 holes in the bottom of the container, and we put our moist growing medium in. We sprinkled a few seeds on top. I sprinkled a little vermiculite on top of that. I used the clear plastic packing tape to seal that cut. And on warm days, I took the lid off of the container. On cool days, I kept it on. And I just put them in a protected area where the wind wouldn't knock them over or, damage them in any way. And come spring, those seeds germinated on their own. And then all you have to do is transplant them up and eventually move them into your garden. They're already hardened off. It's a lot less work. So in addition to perennials, self-sowing flowers work as well as cool weather vegetables. So if you don't have a yard, you want to grow some lettuce, or maybe your garden isn't prepared and it's too late this year to do that, try growing some lettuce in milk jugs or 2-liter pop bottles. Now, granted, you're not going to get as big of a harvest as if you did a plot in your yard, but you are going to get something, and there's no reason you couldn't do several different containers so that you can get enough to use for your meals and to sustain you through winter. So now you might be wondering, what kind of plants to start early and grow into winter? Okay, here are just a few that do really well when they are grown under cover. All types of salad mixes. Arugula, lettuce, mustard greens, all of those kind of salad mixes and lettuces that you may want to try. I think that leaf lettuce does better than Bibb lettuce, but we have certainly grown romaine lettuce and had it survive the winter, and it was beautiful in the spring when we harvested it. Carrots, spinach, radish, especially the black Spanish radish or the daikon radish, scallions, watercress, beets, potatoes. We don't plant potatoes here until sometime between the weekend after Thanksgiving and the weekend before Christmas. Now, I do sprout the potatoes in the house, so I get seed potatoes. I get them sprouted just like you would in the spring. In the fall, before the ground freezes, I dig a trench that is 2 shovel depths deep. That's not easy, but that's how deep you want to go. I line the soil that I take up on either side, and then I backfill the bottom with maybe cleanings from my chicken coop or my goats. So that would be a mixture of straw and hay and, of course, animal manure. You can use dry leaves. You can use dry grass clippings. Any kind of dry material that you have. And you want to put maybe a 1 to 3 inch layer down. And then I always sprinkle over that with a very thin layer of soil. You want enough of the soil that you took out that the plant material is covered and you can't see it, but you don't want it super thick either. So I would say no more than maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 inch at the most. And then you lay those seed potatoes down. On top of the seed potatoes, you want to put another mixture of that dry plant material. The dry grass clippings, the clean out from your barn. You don't want the wet, mucky stuff. You want the drier material. Dry leaves. Don't use black walnut leaves, but other leaves are perfectly fine to use. And then again, you want a thin layer of soil, just like you did before, enough to cover all of that material up and keep it from blowing away, but not so much that, you've got a thick layer of soil. And then what I like to do is, and this isn't optional, but I prefer to do it this way. I take a layer of 6 mil plastic, the same stuff that you would use to plastic your windows with. So you can buy that at any big box store. And I cut a piece of plastic that is large enough to cover the trench that I made. I scoot back some of the soil that I dug out. And I use the soil, bricks, wood, whatever I have, to hold that plastic down. It's not going down in the hole, it's going over the top of the hole. So you could even wrap the edges of the plastic around some 1x2s or whatever you have, and actually create a window frame that you could just lay down. But be sure to use some rocks and brick or something heavy so that if you get some strong winter winds, it just doesn't rip that right off. And what I do is I go out through the winter and I look. If I see the potatoes have started growing, sometimes they will, I go ahead and use the soil and I backfill to cover that potato growth up. In the early spring, you have to watch this really close because those potatoes will start growing and you're going to be doing a lot of backfilling of soil to make sure that foliage stays covered so those potatoes can grow and produce. Doing this, I have harvested potatoes the last week of May or the first week of June. And after you get those potatoes dug, that is a fantastic area to plant your carrots because that soil is already loose and friable and those carrots are going to grow fantastic in it. So other seeds and plants that do well include turnips, peas, leeks, and onions. And you can grow the onions from seed or you can grow the onions from onion sets. It's whatever you prefer and whatever works for you. Next we are going to talk about extending your harvest into autumn and winter. So at the end of the garden season, your garden might still be growing strong. I know that I still have some tomato plants outside that are looking really bad. Not completely dead yet, looking bad. The tomato plant in my tunnel house is doing fantastic, no damage at all to it. So you may still have stuff outside that's really doing good. You need to go out to your garden, take a look, and assess that. So depending on the size of your garden, you can cover it using the same techniques we already talked about and get many of those plants to live just a few weeks longer. A simple cold frame or the frost cover would do this right now because we're only into the 30s. So, and as I said, the material that I have is good down to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So, for those that started seeds of the cooler weather crops in mid-July or later, the trick is to make sure they are a harvestable size and then simply cover them. So, for example, I told you I just planted some seeds of peas, lettuce, radish. I may have planted some carrots. I know there was another item, and I think I did spinach. I don't know if those seeds are going to germinate this late in the year. They may not. It's going to depend on the temperature in my tunnel house because I did direct sow those. So if they germinate, they may or may not have enough heat out there to grow into a harvestable size. They may germinate and just sit there kind of in a dormant state until early spring when the temperatures go up. It's so hard to tell because temperatures can fluctuate so much here in Indiana. I know that my tomato that's out there I will be harvesting for several months to come. I have a rosemary out there that is still doing fantastic. I have oregano. I have pineapple sage. I have some cabbages I'm trying to get to produce a second round of heads. And I have some Swiss chard that is, oh my gosh, that Swiss chard has been doing fantastic. I bought 1 pack of that in the early spring just to get a head start. And we have had, I'm going to guess, 15 to 20 harvests off of that one pack. And I have another harvest right now that I could go out and I could cut. And it's sending up some new leaves. So I imagine I'll have Swiss chard through the winter. But that is a crop that typically does like the cooler temperatures. So, while all of this might seem intimidating or even expensive to do, it's really not. A simple roll of 6 mil plastic, some type of frame that will go around the plantings without touching them, and some type of smaller frame for a second layer of protection is all you need. Frost or row cover is a wonderful product, and I do recommend it. However, if you don't have it, can't find it, or simply cannot afford it, don't let that stop you from growing a garden year-round. I've made frames from tomato cages, old door and window frames, old windows, straw bales, 1x2s, whatever I had on hand. Where there is a will, there is a way. So I hope you're feeling inspired to create a structure of some kind. That's it for today. Are there any questions? And again, if you're missing the live and you have questions, you can leave them underneath this video with hashtag replay and I will answer those. Or you can look for the post in the group that where I ask if you have any questions that you would specifically like answered. So I'm going to wait a few minutes and give people a chance to put some questions in the comments. I'm hoping I can see those. I don't know how to bring up the chat on my phone, on my screen. So I'm trying to see from across the room and see if anyone is posting some questions. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed today's video. And like I said, I'll be back tomorrow with a little more information, a little more questions. And I would like to know, so please leave this in the comments below. Do you feel inspired by this? Do you feel like you can go out and plant something and grow a garden this winter? And lastly, do you intend to actually go out and give this a try? If not, if you're feeling like I missed something, I need more information, I would really like to know that, because I want to help you be able to have a successful winter garden and be able to do this and save money on your grocery bill and harvest fresh nutritional vegetables right from your own backyard, regardless of the season that it is outside. So, okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Again, if I have missed those or you watch the replay, just leave them below and I will get to those. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope all of you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again tomorrow when we go on to the agenda for day 2. Thanks for watching.